Right, the Reds, it's Talking Reds. I'm very pleased this morning to be joined by Rafa Honigstein. I'm sure you know his face. I'm sure you know who he is. A familiar face in the media talking about the Bundesliga and the Premier League. He was on Sky yesterday, for instance. He's writing for The Athletic, of course, as well. So check him out there. And, of course, he's done various books, including one on Jürgen Klopp, which we'll talk to him about a little bit later. But first of all, Rafa, everyone is talking about the Bundesliga, more so than usual as well, because, of course, it returns this weekend. Lots of us will maybe be tuning in that don't normally tune in because it's a little bit of a football fix, it's a match, it's something different. You've obviously been reporting on it. I listened to the podcast you did the other day where you were talking about the return of the league and the implications of it, how it's all worked. One of the things that sort of came across for me, and I wonder whether I'm right or wrong on this, and you can tell me, is do you think there's a better collective spirit in Germany among the football clubs to maybe get things done and get things up and running again? Because it seemed to me with the English Premier League, there's been a lot of roadblocks, a lot of bickering, clubs wanting relegation, clubs wanting neutral venues, clubs not wanting neutral. You know, we've heard and seen all the roadblocks all the way along. Whereas Germany, from the outside at least, it's felt quite a smooth process to get to the point where football's returning.
I think by and large you're right, but I'm not sure that was necessarily motivated by sort of principles of solidarity and togetherness and altruism, in as much as naked survival instinct. I mean, The Bundesliga had to come back, and I think they all realized pretty quickly that without that latest payment of the TV money, which is about 300 million euros, which they were due in the first quarter of the season, which then didn't come because of the games being suspended, a lot of clubs would have serious financial problems. And I think they quickly realized that bickering about venues, about relegation, they just had no choice. I mean, if anyone would have piped up, if anyone would have said, you know what, I don't think relegation is a good idea, the other 33 teams, because it's 36 clubs, Bundesliga 1 and 2 in this together, would have just said, that's great, mate, but we're all going to go bust. So what are you talking about? So I think, yes, it is perhaps slightly less adversarial, football on the whole. I think people are looking maybe to be a bit more open to compromise, generally speaking. But in this case, it was just they were all in the same boat, literally.
And so comparing the two and comparing some of the obstacles that all football clubs face to get football to return during the coronavirus crisis, one of the things that's coming up, obviously, and the reason neutral venues has been mentioned in England, is concerns from police about where stadia is situated in England, the fact that it's, Liverpool, Newcastle, we'll pick whatever ones you like. They're in densely populated areas, they're in housing estates, they're in city centres, in the example of Newcastle. Is there anything different about Germany particularly that it makes it easier for them to play in their stadiums and not so here?
Well, I think by and large, stadiums are not right in city centres. There are exceptions to this. Hamburg, St. Pauli, for example, would be one, but Bremen as well to a certain extent. But of course, geographically, there is a difference with a lot of stadiums being built newly or having come out of stadiums. There were sort of municipal stadiums which were always a little bit outside or in a park or in an area that wasn't necessarily built up. It is perhaps a bit easier. But I think the bottom line is that the clubs don't really feel that their fans will turn up. The organized fans in the Bundesliga have been very, very helpful during coronavirus. They've been volunteering, they've been cooking, they've been helping out, doctors helping out underprivileged parts of society. And no one expects them now to turn around and really violate all the principles of social distancing, either because they want to celebrate or because they want to somehow protest against these games going on. I don't think it's a realistic scenario, but the Bundesliga have also said that if for some reason people want to do this, we would then look at abandoning the game and awarding the points to the opposition. So you have absolutely no reason stroke excuse to turn up, and I don't think that people will.
And that's another part, isn't it, Rafa, of what seems to be a very detailed plan where almost every scenario has been thought about. And, I know clubs have been working almost direct with laboratories, with medical experts. I think you mentioned on the podcast, or someone did, that there's even, clubs now employing pandemic experts to make sure that they do get everything right. Even all that detail, that seems way ahead of what's going on with what we see around the Premier League. It seems very, very far behind, even though we're talking about Premier League football potentially returning next month. Obviously, all eyes will be on Germany and the Bundesliga and how it goes. There's obviously the issue with some players being tested positive already and things like that. But nevertheless, that plan, that detail that went into that plan, that seemed really efficient, really brilliant planning that maybe we're not seeing over here.
Well, we have to see if that brilliant planning will bear fruit. I mean, they're trying their hardest. I think they have been a little bit ahead as a country, and then as a result also as football, than the UK. Maybe 4 weeks is exactly the kind of time frame, when the virus first really became a problem in Germany, and how the authorities, including football, reacted to it. They can only do what any other business that's trying to come back and open up again is trying to do, which is to minimize the risk for the employees. We're talking about 1,700 people, players and staff, that are directly affected and potentially directly exposed. I mean, that is a fairly limited amount of people. And if you can isolate them as much as you can, then apart from the moral reasons that you might want to discuss, or the financial reasons which you think might be uncouth, in terms of logistics, it is actually probably one of the easier things to bring back compared to what happens in restaurants, what happens in hotels, what will happen now in schools, which are reopening as well in Germany. So I think they've just tried to be pragmatic, and they've been quite good at, I think, lobbying the important people in politics to say, look, we have to come back. We will try our best to do this. We think this is a risk that is fairly minimal. Yes, there is risk, but we can't just wait until the vaccine comes and not do anything until the next, 12 months, who knows? And the authorities have accepted that because they, as we see now in the UK, themselves want to open up parts of the economy. So unfortunately, there won't be any perfect solutions, but football here, football in Germany, football everywhere, as long as everyone else will have to find ways to accommodate this situation. And I wouldn't sort of praise Germany too much. All they're trying to do is find a way through this, and we might have to wait if it's feasible. But you can't blame them for trying. That would be my point.
Well, was there a lot of dissenting voices at all about the idea of football coming back this weekend? Because again, I think when you're looking at it from a distance, and particularly if you're a football fan, then the easy thing to do is concentrate only on the football, maybe glance at the Bundesliga, maybe think about games this weekend and what you're going to watch, and not think about the society stuff. Well, has there been much opposition in Germany that you're aware of to it?
Yeah, I mean, there has been opposition, and there is still opposition. I think, first of all, there's opposition in people who perhaps don't really follow the league at all and think, why does football have to come back? Is it really necessary with all this testing and all the hassle and the money that's being spent on that? Shouldn't that money be spent differently? And I think that is a valid position to take. Then there are people within football who are saying, fans, etc., that this is an opportunity to stop, to rethink, and why not start again in a different way? Why not get rid of the excess? Why not make sure that we cut wages, rethink football? The problem with that position is that the clubs are saying, that's great, but by the time we're in a position to do this, we might all be bust. And then where do we go from there? So it's difficult. And I think even the organized fans, by and large, have understood that there is probably not much alternative than playing right now and then thinking about reform. And but there are also people who just for medical reason think, this is a risk. It's unnecessary. It's only football. It's not an essential activity. Why should players do this? Why should family members, staff be exposed to this? So I think by and large, you'd say it's a mixed picture, and everyone's waiting, I think, where this is going. In my view, there are two things that can happen. One is that the thing kind of falls apart with too many clubs having positive results, too many games being postponed or rearranged, and the Bundesliga just saying, you know what, we tried, but we can't do it. We'll have to try again maybe next month. Maybe there's new testing then, or we'll have to find some kind of solution. Or if it does work and the economy in Germany keeps, being opened up and people are controlling the situation, then people probably get used to it, because one final sentence on this, unfortunately, there's no realistic scenario of things changing anytime soon. We will probably have exactly the same problems and the same kind of halfway house, not real football, inverted commas, in December, maybe even in January of next year. So that's just our lot, I'm afraid.
And we have got football of sorts then returning this weekend, and the various things going on. We've seen the stuff about you can buy a picture of yourself in the ground and all that kind of stuff, and the silly stuff, if you like. But on the actual football will be on the television. We can in Britain sit down and watch some live football this weekend, which will lift spirits and maybe improve some people's mental health and things like that, which is not to be underestimated. For people dipping in for the first time to Bundesliga, because I'm sure there'll be plenty. Any tips, Rafa, on what teams they should be watching, what games they should be tuning into?
Well, I think we have a lot of really good teams and good players this year. We're quite lucky in a way. It could be a vintage season. I mean, it won't look like it, unfortunately, without the fans in the final quarter of the season. But in terms of the football, in terms of the title race, even, it's been very exciting. And I think you only have to look at as far as sort of the top 4 or 5 teams to see that they're all really playing some really good stuff, and not just good by the Bundesliga standards, but if you put them in European context, as we saw when Bayern played against Spurs, when Bayern played against Chelsea, when Leipzig played against Spurs, for example, even Dortmund against PSG, you could see how even it was, at least in the first leg, that these teams are sort of objectively really good this year. So if you want to just enjoy the football and not worry too much about your sort of sympathies and loyalties, and don't really care about the clubs as such, you just want to watch the teams, which I think is probably your best way forward in this situation, because there are no fans to watch. You could do a lot worse than, for example, looking at Bayern. They have a really interesting game coming up away to Union Berlin, one of the newly promoted sides who are going really strong, but Bayern have been in ominous form. Dortmund against Schalke, that's probably the tastiest fixture of the first match day. The big Revier derby. David Wagner, Jürgen Klopp's best man, in charge of Schalke now. Dortmund, of course, Klopp's former club, and they're playing some wonderful football this year. It'll be a different derby, but I think the football will be still pretty spectacular. And then you have Leipzig, as we already mentioned, but even Leverkusen, who some people might have seen do quite a lot of damage against Steven Gerrard's Rangers before football was suspended. I mean, they have some fantastic players. First and foremost, Kai Havertz, who is the guy that the whole of Europe would love to have next season.
And you mentioned sort of transfers and transfer stories there. I've got to ask you about Timo Werner, constantly and consistently linked with Liverpool. It seems like he's sort of been waving over to Merseyside for quite a while now, saying things in interviews and everything else, stuff regularly leaked out to newspapers too around, a potential move. I mean, A, do you see that move still happening given what has now happened with the coronavirus? And B, how good is he and would he fit in at Liverpool, do you think?
I don't think there's any doubt that he would fit in. He would be good enough to play for this team. Maybe not good enough to displace one of the front three immediately, but as the fourth guy and giving you the chance to rotate a bit and just manage your resources a bit better, I think he'd be a fantastic signing for Liverpool. And the appeal, I think, is very clear. He is a halfway between a striker and a winger, which is perfect for Liverpool's system with a 4-3-3. So I think there are a lot of reasons why this could happen. Also, his price pre-Corona would have been very, very cheap at around £50 million release clause. Now, these days, it might be seen as more problematic, and you might think twice if perhaps you want to rebuild or redevelop parts of the stadium, as Liverpool, I understand, are looking at. And if you have no income from tickets, maybe until the end of the year, so there's a knock-on effect. At the same time, I think Liverpool should be in a position with all the great economic situation that they've put themselves in over the last couple of years to pull this off. The question is just when. My guess would be that they want to see Liverpool, if football can come back. Remember, the next TV rights payment domestically is due in July. If no football is being staged by then, I think the rights holders might well say, that's fine, we're just going to have to wait a little bit. At which point you're missing half of your income from the national TV money, which is absolutely huge for a club of Liverpool's size. So then we might see some kind of negative knock-on effects. And I think because there's this uncertainty in the market, we haven't really seen more progress. Whereas in a normal season, normal year, I think this would have been probably gone through already. One more thing I would say is that the interest that you might have seen about from Inter for the player, I understand there is genuine interest. Inter are in the process of selling Lautaro Martinez to Barca and need a replacement, and they seem to have figured that Werner is the ideal guy. Whether that really changes the equation too much, I'm not sure, but it might just be a slight sort of complication in the deal, as it were, because there is now, I think, a credible, if not bid, but a credible sort of direction or address, I would say, for Werner to go to if the Liverpool thing doesn't happen.
Interesting stuff. Okay, well, we're just going to break for a little clip of a new show that we've got on the Anfield app, where you can download our app and watch this in full if you like the look of it. It is called The Treble, and we get a contributor on each time to talk about three things that mean a lot to them in their Liverpool support and life. So here's a clip from The Treble. What do you want to start with, Lizzie, then? What's the first
Going to start with me first ever Liverpool shirt.
Okay, so your first ever Liverpool shirt. You know, sounds, and we're all different ages and all that, and that sound, and nice shirt and all that. And then on the back, Babel. Come on, girl, why have you gone for, why did you have Babel on the back of your shirt?
So,
I mean, he was all right.
Yeah, I mean, like my first game, I think everyone's heard me say it before, was Barnsley in the FA Cup. It was, so I didn't get to go to a game till I was about, what year was Barnsley? I think I was about 15, 16, something like that, because as you all know, watching this, it's so hard to get Liverpool tickets. It's really expensive, and I couldn't get my dad to take both of us, and it was too hard to get tickets all together. So it was only when my brother was old enough and when I was old enough that I could go. So this was like sort of when I first started properly getting into it, because I used to watch it on the telly, but this was when I finally got to like start going the match. And Ryan Babel was just someone who intrigued me, and I wanted to be a bit different, because I went the match and everyone talked about Gerrard. This was before Torres become a thing and was the poster boy who I then fell in love with. And if he hadn't broke my heart, it would have been his shirt laying on here and not Babel's. But everyone had Gerrard. Everyone spoke about Gerrard and Carragher, and I wanted to be a bit different because it was my Liverpool shirt. It was my first one, and I saw Ryan Babel and I really liked him. I liked that he was quick. I liked the way he played. And I liked that he was a little bit unconventional and the people didn't know too much about him and didn't know how to take him. And I wanted to be the person to go, aha, I told you so. So when they played Arsenal in the Champions League, I remember, even though this was about 2 years old, I remember being that moment of, Well, I told you, didn't I?
Get
I told you.
Get out the loft and put it on and see.
I just I liked him, and like I say, it was me.
Mad on Twitter though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Oh, and he'd done a rap video, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Did you see the rap video?
Yeah.
I just liked the fella, and I was made up when he signed for Fulham, and then when I heard he was playing for the Holland team as well. I don't know, I've just got like a little affinity to him, and it's because he's on the back of my first shirt.
Okay, that is a clip from the treble. If you fancy a look at that, download the Anfield app. It's available on all platforms. You can have a go at that, and you can try out some of our other premium content as well. Okay, Rafa, just wanted to get you on Jürgen Klopp. I mean, we've had no football for a while now. It's strange times we are currently living in. Everyone's been watching old games and trying to cheer themselves up in whatever way they can. You're obviously author of the book, Klopp, Bring the Noise. Got it here. Excellent book. Do recommend it for anyone who hasn't read it. Not just saying that because Rafa's on the call. But Rafa, you know, you got to spend some time with him. You've written that book, as I say. You've spoken to a lot of people about Jürgen Klopp over the years as well. I think you were spending some time with the team around about this time last year as well. From what you know, what is it that makes Jürgen Klopp special? What gives him that edge over other coaches and sort of, you know, makes him the winner, the figurehead, the leader that he is?
How much time do we have? I can't really answer this in one or two sentences. I think the best I can do in terms of general overview is to say that he ticks a lot of boxes that are very important. I think management, coaching is about the ability to help your players perform. But how you do that, there are different ways of doing it. You can do it through man management, and I think he is undoubtedly one of the best in that area. The way he motivates his players, the way he gets his players to buy into the idea of playing for a team, of working hard, of being this unit, of also understanding the value of football to the fans, to the city that they're based in. You know, all these kind of connections, all this energy this creates when you have these extra resonance and you understand the responsibility it comes with playing for a team like Liverpool. But there's also a technical side which is sort of underappreciated, I think, at times. The ability really to look at a team and say, if I do this, if I change this, if we have a different approach here in the final third, if we move things around a little bit, then we'll have a better chance of winning against this particular team, or making a change when it matters, or having a system that brings out the best of players in a way that every single player suddenly seems to be improved. I mean, look at this Liverpool team and look at how people thought about players like Matip and Henderson and Robertson when he first came. Even Firmino, I personally wasn't really sold because he was so inconsistent at Hoffenheim. The list goes on, but if you have a coach that helps players to perform individually and collectively, then A, you get results, and then B, you're going to be the best, one of the best in the business, because very few, I think, manage to bridge that divide, or shall we say, unite those two factors of the job. I think you have brilliant man motivators and you have brilliant technicians and tacticians, but not necessarily people who have both. And I think he really has, which makes him pretty special guy.
And he put speculation to bed about his future, obviously, by signing a fresh contract with Liverpool. And we now can look forward to Jürgen Klopp sticking around on Merseyside and hopefully, you know, rebuilding this side that he's already built, because, you know, some of the players are starting to get to the wrong end of their careers, if you like, and there's going to be some tinkering over the years. And it'd be great to think that we've got Jürgen here to do that tinkering. Nevertheless, though, despite him signing that contract, there was always lots of talk, and maybe there will be again one day, of him maybe going back to Germany one day, maybe even fancying the national team job and things like that. I mean, I know we're only speculating and we're talking about something way off in the future, but what are your general thoughts on it, you know, knowing what you know and knowing what he's done so far in his career?
I think that eventually he wants to slow down perhaps a little bit and go from this high pressure job to a slightly more gentle rhythm. And the national team job is perfect for that. You're kind of coasting for at least 1.5 years out of every 2, and then you have very intense couple of months, and then you have another period where things are very, very slow. And I think eventually that will appeal to him. The question is, how soon will that moment come? I've always said that I believe that Klopp will only get to that point when he feels that his job at Liverpool is done. So in a way, Liverpool fans shouldn't be too afraid, because if Klopp moves, it probably means that he's won everything he thinks he could have won. And also perhaps having found a way to, I don't want to say safeguard his legacy, because that's maybe overblown, but have a good transition plan in place to make sure that everything that's been built up doesn't just break down because the club signed the wrong manager or kind of lose their way. So I'd be very, very optimistic if I was a Liverpool fan. I think he isn't done yet. I think he's still got a few good years in for him. I think coronavirus, as much as it was probably very challenging mentally, in terms of energy, maybe has given him an extra lease of life, or made this season slightly less frenetic, I think is the best way to put it. So that could be beneficial in the long run, that he doesn't quite feel as tired and as sort of being in this rat race and being really overexpended in terms of the physical and mental demands of coaching a club like Liverpool. So I think you'll be able to enjoy him for a few good more years.
That sounds good to me. Rafa, thanks very much for coming on today. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Would recommend Rafa's book, as I said before. Also, do check him out on The Athletic, regularly writing about the Bundesliga and the Premier League. Various other podcasts as well. He's always on the television as well. He's a great guy, talks so well about football. Delighted to have you on Talking Reds today, Rafa. Thanks very much. And that has been Talking Reds.